Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome back to the attic. Buddy actually decided to join us for a little bit today. We are joined today by Peter Sagal, who Wikipedia describes as a humorist, but he's also a writer and a host of NPR's show Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which actually came through South Bend. I'd say recently, but all time blurs now. It must have been a couple years ago, and Peter was a guest on the show. So let's bring Peter in now, because you all have a lot of questions for him. Hey,
Hello, Chasten. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm all right. I can tell you exactly when it was we came through. We came through in February of 2018 to South Bend, beautiful
Okay,
South
so it
Bend.
wasn't too long ago.
And we invited your husband to be
Yes.
the guest on their show because we did not know at that time that you were the more interesting of the couple. I apologize.
Yeah, he's really boring, right?
He is. He's dull. He's just always going on about facts and policies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody would much rather hang with you, Chasten. You know that.
Well, thank you. I just realized I'm on the wrong Wi-Fi, so give me 1 second. All right. Oh no, did I ruin it? There you are.
This is, by the way, this is my
Okay.
first ever Instagram Live. I've never done this before. It's very exciting.
And you got an Instagram just for this occasion.
I did. I've created an Instagram account because I always thought I was too old for Instagram. You know,
Well,
basically, you know,
I think
basically
Instagram
my
is-
generation, we look at photos through Viewmasters.
Welcome to the 21st century. I think, I spent so much time on Twitter on the campaign because that's where a lot of the talking heads are. And I think that's where, a lot of people in the political sphere are getting their news. But I think Instagram is a much more, it's just a kinder platform, I think. It's much more aspirational. I think people are like sharing their workout routines and their dogs and their families. And it's not like, you're terrible, everything about you is awful, you're canceled every day.
But isn't that a problem? Because if people are posting photos of how their exercise routines and how fit they are, or their homes and how beautiful they are, and their dogs and how great their dogs are, doesn't that make us feel terrible about ourselves even more than we normally do? Isn't it better to be on Twitter where everybody is a monster and a moral midget and you can feel superior to that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I do think it's funny though. I was pointing this out to my Peter that like people will post these like thirsty like trap pictures, right? Where they're like barely wearing anything, or like they have like their weights and stuff, and then the description will be like, "Just hang in there. We're all in this together."
Yes.
Like another day in isolation. We're like, I don't think kindness is selling.
Yeah, I don't take off my shirt and oil up my torso for my typical day in isolation. Why are you
like,
doing
here's
that?
a poem I wrote today.
Did you see this thing on Netflix? I've not watched the show, but it was like Too Hot to Handle or something. The idea is they take all those people and they put them on this island and they tell them that now that you're all here and you're all gorgeous and you're all young and you're all single, but you can't have sex with each other. That's the premise of the show.
Yeah,
I found out. Yeah, go on.
No, I saw someone share that was a show, and I on Twitter the description was like, "Is Netflix okay?"
Yeah, I know, but these shows are successful. What I found out is like, where did they find these people? They're all Instagram influencers.
Well, of course.
They're all of these people who spend their days, and you can follow their feeds, looking at them posing with the oiled torsos and the yoga pants, depending. And I'm like, that's too good for these people.
Yeah.
I just, they got what they deserved.
I thought that, what's that show? Is it Love is Blind?
Yes.
I thought that was an interesting concept, and I watched like maybe 20 minutes of it. I was like, this could be like good garbage television for isolation, but there are no LGBTQ people on the show.
Yes, that seems bad. Have there been any like significant dating shows with LGBTQ queer people of any kind on the show?
Not that not that I've ever seen or that I know about, but like I have to watch so many straight people on television all the time. Like, why can't we have a good dating show? I'm not cultured enough.
Speaking of all straight people, I apologize.
Well, you're on radio, so that's different.
That's true. No one can tell. But in my experience, gay people are much more attractive, interesting, and fun. And I think,
Well,
anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The entire community. I
know. You were all waiting for my seal of approval.
How is Mara?
Mara, my lovely wife, is great. She's in the other room having her own online meeting because that's how we all live. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but you and my wife, Mara, and you and your husband, Pete, have something in common. We all got married on the same day, June
Yes.
16th, 2018, though not to each other.
Not to one another. Yeah.
No.
But sure.
And I felt fine about that until I found out that your wedding had skee ball. I thought our wedding was great. I was very happy about it. It was a beautiful place with our close friends and family, and I was like, this is great. And then I found out that the Buttigiegs, sorry, it's been years, so I can't do it. I know, you'd expect better. Had skee ball, and then all of a sudden I felt bad.
You know, if you're planning a wedding, people have so much advice for you, and I started to get so tired of people's advice. But if I think I can offer any advice to people who are planning a wedding, is for me, it was like pick 5 things that you care about and be willing to get rid of or sacrifice the rest. Like the moms wanted to have certain things, Peter wanted to have certain things, and for me, I was like, we're gonna have arcade games. I think that would be so fun. So we got a claw machine, which is Peter's favorite arcade game. We got skee ball, which is mine, and I was like willing to spend the money on renting those. And like, nobody needs monogram cocktail napkins. That's my opinion.
Something just flew by. Your husband, his favorite arcade game is the claw machine?
You don't know this about him? Oh yeah.
No.
We had at one point when I moved into this house, like bags and bags of stuffed animals in a closet because he loves claw machines so much.
So he has perfected that strange combination of skill, patience, and focus to be a successful claw machine.
Yeah, it's almost annoying to like pass one in an airport and be like, ooh, you got $1 on you? And then, you know, he has like all these strategies and plans, and I would say like 2 out of 3 times he wins.
That is so not surprising in a weird way. You know?
Now I've gotten him to the point where like, you know, if we're in an airport or something, like just give the stuffed animal to like that kid sitting there, you know, like watching us. Like, yeah, we won the tiger. You can have it now. You know, it's just like
really he's like he can walk in and like do the claw machine and hand off.
Yeah,
you know, that's great.
I think that's pretty sexy.
Yes, it is. It is very sexy.
God. Speaking of extremely extremely sexy things, Julian on Instagram asked, "Is it true that you're a big Lego fan?"
Not particularly, although I think I know why she says that, because a few years ago, well, this is when my kids were small, I discovered that there's something called Brick World, which is a convention of Lego artists, a thing I did not know existed, that happens every year here near Chicago on Father's Day. So it became my family's Father's Day tradition. And I just love these people who spend their days, I mean, they're not building like pre-made Lego kits. They're building models of everything from spaceships to castles to anything, to like an 8-foot version of the Titanic. And I just thought that was a really weird subculture. And I actually became friends with one of those artists, a guy named Dave Coletta, who is a kindergarten teacher here in Chicago, in Hyde Park. And he's like this brilliant artist, but his medium is Lego bricks. And he builds beautiful little dioramas of daily life. He's got a series of dioramas of like, this is the day he met his wife. This is the day they proposed. This is the day they got married. Oh, it's amazing. And they're sort of like beautiful little, you know, slices of life done in plastic bricks. It's really crazy. I also got to meet once Nathan Sawaya, who is apparently the world's greatest and most acclaimed Lego artist. He's the guy who did that very famous image of the torso with the person pulling his chest apart and the Lego spills out. That's his. So I know a little bit about the culture, but I cannot claim to be like a fan or a participant.
Neat. That is something I know nothing about.
I didn't. Now I do.
The more you know.
What strange new worlds there are.
Okay, so you're probably most well known for hosting Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Probably.
Love well, publicly. I love the show. When I was in grad school, driving to and from Chicago 3 days a week, I'd catch up on old programs. I'm wondering, someone submitted this question. Is it difficult to, and this is my show, and you don't have to, this is just for us and for fun.
Okay.
And for joy.
Nobody watches, nobody cares.
A real interview. Because if you go to your Twitter, we all know how you feel. But is it difficult to maintain political neutrality for you? And
Yes,
how do you go about it?
yes and no. Yes, it is difficult because I'm like everybody else. I read the news probably more than is good for me. I have very strong feelings about the things that I am seeing. But it is because I realized a while ago that it's kind of my job to be neutral. And I don't mean it's imposed on me by NPR, although they do have rules about, like, for example, I can't contribute to political campaigns and stuff like that. But it's valuable to be neutral because I think people need that, especially in today's media environment. I mean, you can listen to 24/7 of people being very angry about politics and denouncing people they don't agree with for good reason. I'm not going to argue that these people are wrong, but it can be exhausting. And so when people get to my hour, whenever it may be on the weekend, our hour, I should say, because I do it with my friends and collaborators, they deserve a break. They don't need somebody else telling them, oh, this person, this president is awful. This policy is terrible. They get that. There's plenty, there's, if there's nothing live, there's 1,000 podcasts you can listen to if you want that. Right. So we give them a break. And over the years, I have discovered that even though people don't necessarily articulate it that way, I think that resonates with people. It's not so much that we're giving them a break from politics. We talk about politics. We're giving them a break from rage. And there's way too much of that.
Yeah. So, But I'm wondering for you now, I mean, now that we've had 4 years of this president, is it difficult for you to continuously try to not be like overtly political and infuse the show with punditry, but you're sort of making fun at it and shedding some light on the hilarity? Is that getting exhausting though? Like, because
it's exhausting because satire is roughly, and to a first approximation, exaggeration, right? You take something dumb and you exaggerate it so you can see how dumb it is, right? So you make fun of Marco Rubio, for example. We did this, looking very young, by saying, and then after his campaign events, his staff would buckle him into his car seat and they'd go off to the next one, okay? That's a joke. Many such jokes were made about your husband. We made some of those jokes about how young he is.
Yeah.
Like people, I remember one joke we actually made was, people accuse Mayor Pete of being a Republican. That's crazy. He's not even old enough to vote. All right. That's exaggeration.
Yeah.
Your husband's young. He's not that young. We're exaggerating it to make a point. With the president, there's nothing you can say or describe that's crazier than what he did.
Right.
I have a friend who does cartoons under the name of Tom Tomorrow. This Modern World is his political satire. And he was tweeting last night that after the president said, oh, everybody should maybe drink bleach, he had to tear up his whole cartoon because in his crazy satirical cartoon, he probably had the president saying something like everybody should drink bleach.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges. It's also, and I don't think I need to explain this to anybody who's a fan of yours, things are getting so enraging, especially now that people are dying, that it's harder and harder to find something about the president that's just funny, as opposed to enraging, as opposed to upsetting. And we don't want to go there with our audience for the reasons I've already said. They're upset and enraged enough. So what's weird is as things get more and more dire, we're actually talking about Trump less and less, I think, for that reason.
That's probably we all appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, look at it this way. If you want somebody telling you the president is an idiot, I invite you to Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Someone just posted in the comments, did you see this thing where like The Onion ran an article a month ago as a joke, of course, that the president would suggest that people drink disinfectants.
Yep. And he did it. And it's both terrifying that that's true, and it's a real challenge for people in my line of work,
Ridiculous.
It's tough. Yeah.
So the show, memorable moments, favorite guests besides, my husband.
Yes.
Can you tell us just a little bit about maybe some memorable moments that stick out to you from hosting that show?
We've had I've been doing it for 22 years, which is longer than I think you've been alive. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And so there've been many, many, many guests, and every single one of them almost with one or two exceptions, I was delighted to talk to. And some of them have been extraordinarily impressive. I talked to Barack Obama. I've talked to Bill Clinton. I've talked to Nobel Prize winners and Oscar winners. I talked to one this week, Allison Janney. But
I love her. Oh,
she's amazing.
Oh.
She's amazing. She's delightful and funny and charming and modest and just the best.
Has that show come out yet?
No, this weekend. It'll be broadcast nationwide. We taped the show a day in advance or so. So I talked to her last night from this very chair, in fact, because I'm taping my show in my house.
Oh, incredible. Okay, anyway.
But the most gratifying and memorable guests, for me anyway, have been the people I admired when I was young, many years ago. And fortunately, I was able to speak to them as a guest on my show, and it turned out they were just as wonderful as I always hoped they were. So maybe the best example is Leonard Nimoy. I was a huge Trek fan growing up, original series. That's all there was back then. And in walks Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock. And he's terrific. He's a delight. He's kind. He's generous. He's charming with everyone. He's modest even. And you're like, whoa, all those years I spent, walking around in my Mr. Spock blue Star Trek windbreaker when I was 10, they weren't wasted. He was wonderful. And that's been true of so many other people, including William Shatner, including Carrie Fisher, including Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett.
Oh my gosh.
Likes my radio show. Dick Van Dyke.
Do you have a t-shirt that says that?
I wish. Actually, I have a tattoo on my chest, but it's private.
Now I know what I'm getting you for your birthday.
I know. Thank you very much. But it's very gratifying to find out that people you admired were worth that admiration.
Yes.
And in fact, it's made me very self-conscious. And I think that this is something that you and certainly Pete are going to deal with if you're not already, is you're going to meet people who've invested a lot of energy in you and a lot of emotion in you. I know that's true. I know that's true with you and Pete because I saw it online happening in real time.
Yeah. And
you're going to meet those people. And if you're anything like me, you're going to feel an obligation to make sure that those people feel good about that. That Absolutely. You want to treat them well enough, with enough respect and attention and gratitude, that they walk away from that interaction feeling, hopefully, honestly, that they didn't waste that time. Because people in my business, we demand from our audience the most valuable thing they have, which is their time.
Right.
And I don't want them to ever say, "Oh, that was a waste. I shouldn't have done that."
I was always so astounded on the campaign trail, and I'd show up somewhere and there'd be like 100 people in this room. I'm like, 100 people came to see me? Like, Pete's not even here, I'm just coming to, spread the good word and talk to folks about the campaign. And I always felt such a heavy obligation, not to mess it up. And it's also so touching that people want to.
Yeah. I mean, it is an obligation and it can feel overwhelming. And I know some people who are really famous. I'm public radio fame, which is like a scale model. It's like a Lego diorama of real fame. But these people are really famous, and it can be absolutely exhausting. Yeah. Because people have so much invested in you from your movies or whatever it is you did, and they kind of want that from you, that validation that their affection was worth it, and it can be really exhausting. Yeah. And so I feel lucky that, I only have to deal with it on a small scale. But for someone like Tom Hanks, for example, who was our guest, and I've seen him interacting with people, and you can see him working hard to be kind, to be generous and attentive to every single person, which is really to his credit, because imagine the fame.
Yeah, he's Tom Hanks, right? He's
Tom Hanks.
He's like the epitome of kind America.
Right, and he knows that that's something that people expect, and he is going to give that to them out of generosity. But you can also tell it's really tiring. You can see him just kind of after a while, you just kind of lose it. I'm sure this is something that every politician in the world or politician's spouse has dealt with. Just because people invest so much in you.
I would describe it to my friends. I was trying to talk about how I just felt on the trail as vulnerability fatigue. That every day you put it all on the line. And I would tell the same heartbreaking stories and the same stump speech 10 times a day. And people would ask me the same questions, and I would still every day invest in giving them the same answer, the same story that I told at one point, in a different city. I'd come to the next city and tell the same story, even though, I was opening up a lot and talking about really, really hard things and why politics for me was so personal. At the end of the day, you're just, there's like nothing left. Um, but it's when you see the trade-off there, though,
Yes.
and how happy people are, and how people walk away from that feeling like they've been heard and they've been seen, and someone actually understands them, and there's
Yes.
you know, that glimmer of hope in their eyes. Totally worth it.
The one thing, of course, you and Pete especially have to deal with that I don't ever have to deal with is nobody comes up to me expecting me to give them health care or,
Yeah,
you know, or fix the world or fix the country or help them with their loans or all the problems that drive people to get interested in politics. At least I never have to deal with that. I can't imagine the burden that is to have that kind of expectation.
I think it's really hard for him. And when we travel together, obviously he's much more visible than I am. So I could like sneak in and out of airports sometimes, and you know, people would do, you know, a double take or whatever. But I think a lot of times people, it's very funny that like people would like double take or triple take at like a gate in the airport, but they would never say hello because I feel like maybe they thought it wasn't me, which is great.
Yeah.
When you're with Pete, and then it's the two of us together. It's clearly us.
Oh yes.
You know, and poor Pete, you're like in the airport, he's trying to have a cup of coffee, like sneak in a meal, and someone will come up and be like, "These are all the reasons why I think you're a terrible human being," right? And he's just trying to like drink coffee or like eat some Chipotle really quickly. They're like, "Let me start at the top," right? And you have to like sit there and smile and hear it.
Yeah.
And he always handles it with such grace. And the thing that surprises me about him is he's genuinely interested in listening and then helping.
Bro, I know.
Where if someone came up from behind me and was like, "Hey, I hate your guts. Here's why," it still would throw me a little bit. And for Pete, he'd be like, "Oh, please tell me more." You know,
and he's got an additional problem because everybody's got a camera, and he knows that if somebody came up and said something vicious and awful, and he turned around and did what I would do, which is tell the guy to F off, that would be on the internet, everywhere instantly. And he can't do. Although who knows, maybe that could help.
That's the scary part. I mean, so
Let
many times people would come up to me, you know, and like have their phone, you know, holding it like right here, and ask me some question to get me like really fired up. Like you need to invest in the smaller camera. You need to you need to change your
all of that said, Chasten, do you miss it? Because you guys went through this bizarre transition of being national celebrities for good reason. And you know, people were invested in you. People were following you around. People were showing up in mass to hear you guys speak, both of you. And then it was over, and now you're locked in your house.
Yeah, well, I've redone my attic.
That's it's very nice.
This used to be like a mothball-filled like storage space, and so I'm running out of house projects. But I mean, I'm enjoying being home, catching up with Peter, spending time with the dogs. We spent our first year of marriage basically apart, you know, crisscrossing the country. And I'm glad that I have these opportunities to catch up with him. But I'm an extrovert at heart. I love people. I love talking to people. That's why I'm, you know, doing this to, you know, just spread some joy and bring people together, because I loved being out there, especially talking with people who just felt like politics was not somewhere where they belonged. And that's how I grew up feeling. And, you know, when I came out of the closet, I felt like nobody cared about me, or politics and politicians, you know, was not a space for LGBTQ equality and rights. And so then I'd go into these rooms and talk to people who felt the same way, right? Like, people don't get me. People don't understand my story. I would go to LGBTQ centers, and these kids would be like, you know, you don't understand my story. And I'd be like, you're right. I don't. Tell it to me. I want to take it to Washington. I want to help, you know, change this country with you. And I loved that. And I love people walking away feeling like they had been heard, like someone truly understood where they were coming from. And I think a lot of politics today, you know, politicians and leaders lack the ability to actually listen to other people. And that was one of the favorite parts of campaigning for me, was just going somewhere, opening my notebook, taking notes, and just listening to people. Right. And I miss that. I miss those genuine connections and people giving you like the big hugs and, you know, thanking you just for your visibility, that they never thought they would see a gay man run for president. They never thought that they would see, you know, this day or ever feel like they belonged in a campaign. And I really, really do miss that. So I'm glad Peter has his current political project with Win the Era, and, you know, we're doing these Instagram live shows, just because I'm not a political, you know, I don't know what to say. I'm not very good at politics, but what I am grateful for is the opportunity to connect with people and talk to people and listen to people. And so I'm glad that we can still do this through technology because, I got 550 people in here right now, hopefully feeling just a little bit better about the world and themselves during this scary time of isolation. And I do miss that.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed like you guys were always having, maybe fun is not the right word, but you were always appreciating. You were having fun. It's fun
Yeah.
to be out there. And the enthusiasm for you guys was amazing. And I am an old man and never thought I would see the day and was delighted to see it. I will say, and I went on about this on Twitter a little bit, it was really weird knowing somebody who was running for president.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met people who've run for president. I've talked to people who were president. But to see somebody I knew as a person, considered a friend, to enter into that spotlight, to throw his proverbial hat in the ring and be treated as a candidate was really disorienting.
Yeah.
Because people, many of whom I like and agree with on many topics, were saying these things about your husband that just weren't true. I mean, nobody's obligated to like or vote for anyone, including Pete. But these lines about he's a CIA agent, or he's clearly doesn't believe in this, or I mean, it was surprising to me, and maybe only because I had nothing like yours, but a little bit of that sort of personal connection, to see how politics and political tribalism distorts people. I mean, it's not necessary to hate someone to vote for their opponent. You can just say, well, you're a nice person, but I would prefer this person's policies or personality. I will vote for them. But somehow people do. And it was just really alarming. And I would write to some of my friends. I say, why do you have it in for Mayor Pete? And they'd write back, so, well, he's like this, and he's like this, and he said this, and he said this. And I would sometimes write back and say, actually, he didn't say that. That was distorted. He didn't actually say, for example, that he would appoint justices like Justice Kennedy. He was making a larger argument, and it was sort of distorted. And they didn't really want to hear it. Because that's the other thing I learned, is that it's not just seemingly human for people to get into that kind of tribal mindset. It's actually enjoyable. People enjoy that malice.
I felt so, like, there were so many times in the campaign trail where, I taught middle school before I left my career to go out on the campaign trail, and I held my 7th and 8th graders to such a high standard in the ways that we treat one another, we treat our environment, the ways in which we talk about the material, how we disagree with ideas and opinions, but we don't disagree with people, the way we, respectfully disagree with one another, and the way we talk about one another and treat one another on the internet. And then I'd be out on the campaign trail and I'd read things from other adults, people in positions of power, people with blue check marks next to their name, and they had a really large platform, but talking about other human beings in a way that I would never tolerate as a teacher of middle schoolers. And there's so many times I would turn to my staff in the car and I'd be like, as a teacher, and they'd be like, I know, like adults can be, really, really messed up. And there were some times when people would approach me, they'd confront me like with the cell phone, and I should preface this. I admire Elizabeth Warren. I admire Senator Sanders. I think people on the internet want us all to hate each other. I got along with all of them just fine backstage, sitting next to the spouses. Of course we're all competing, but these people would come up to me and they would be like yelling at me about, Elizabeth Warren. And I'd be like, I really like Elizabeth Warren. I think she'd make a great president. I think, though, she would probably prefer you be out there knocking on doors or making calls on her behalf than like coming to this coffee shop and yelling in my face. That's not doing anything to win over support for your candidate. Your time is better spent. And unfortunately, there were, some conspiracy theories that just went around the internet. And I always wondered, like, I hope our supporters aren't partaking in that. I hope our supporters aren't going and yelling at supporters of, a different candidate. I hope they're talking to their friends and family. I hope they're knocking on doors. I hope they're making phone calls. I hope they're, at the field office, painting or delivering cookies to other people and just making people feel welcomed in our campaign. And, it's a bummer that adults treat each other that way, that they, distort the truth on the internet. And I think some get great joy out of spending their time tearing other people down than, rather than building other people up.
Well, I think that's obviously true, because if you think about it, none of those people have ever been convinced to do anything because somebody screamed abuse at them. So why do they think that screaming abuse at somebody else is going to convince them? They're not doing it for that. They're doing it for some other reason. I think there's a dopamine hit, or it's just, or maybe, there's just so much anger and it's hard to find a place for it. And
I'm convinced
I know.
Like, some people are more focused on winning Twitter than winning an election.
Right. Which is bad, or winning the moment, or getting likes, or whatever it may be. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You were a teacher when we met, and you've had to leave it, obviously. Are you going to go back? Have you decided?
I would like to in some capacity. I want to be, we'll do our best through the election right now, and life is kind of up in the air with isolation, and we'll see what the next steps are for Peter. But wherever I go, wherever I end up, I want to make sure that I'm, making an impact, especially for the youth in this country. I love arts education, was a fervent supporter of increasing funding for arts education out on the campaign trail. But I do miss that day-to-day interaction with my students. I have some who actually still email me, and it's great to keep up with them. Some who don't have teachers they like right now, or, they're lacking the motivation to do these online classes. And I miss just being that person in the room. That's what I loved about teaching. It wasn't teaching English or social studies or drama. It was just being the person that they looked forward to seeing every day.
Yeah.
And in a way, I got to do that on the campaign trail, and I want to make sure I find a way to continue to do that.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I mean, I always knew you loved it. Anybody who loved it as much, and people should be doing what they love, and you loved that.
Yeah,
and
I hope after isolation, people really understand how hard teaching is. I've seen far too many people complaining on social media about teaching their one child. Imagine teaching hundreds. So
I have children, and I saw them through school. I never, ever take teachers for granted. I would go in and when my kids were in elementary school, I'd meet their teachers, and I could not do what they did for 5 minutes. It's just,
Thank you, Peter.
I'd lose it. I'd be like Jack Black at the beginning of School of Rock, where he says, just put your head in your desks for an hour. Just do that. That would be me.
You just roll in the TV cart, play.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering,
yes,
do you have Carl Castle's voice on your voicemail?
Oh, I don't. And of course, now that Carl is gone, I wish I did. I have some memorabilia of Carl. No, sadly, my voicemail is my voice. I hate to disappoint everybody. You just get me. You just get me, sadly. Since when Carl retired about a year or so before he died, we started offering anybody's voice. Bill Curtis was very gracious because he didn't demand that we make him the prize, as Carl had been for so many years. But I think Bill knew, as has turned out to be the case, that 90% of the people who win on our show ask for Bill Curtis, because they're not fools, Chasten. They know this is like the voice of God, and that he will say anything they ask.
I love it. We've chatted a long time. I'm surprised. I just noticed the time.
I was told, by the way, again, my first Instagram Live, I was told that youth of today have very short attention span. So I'm doing one.
Watching and like.
Yeah, I'm doing the first ever live Instagram thing for Wait on Sunday. And I said to my staff who set it up, I said, should be like what? Should be about an hour? And they're like, oh no. 7 minutes, Peter. Do 7 minutes. That's pushing it.
Yeah.
So there will be an Instagram Live. Fun. I'm sorry. Say again, Chasten.
This is just for fun. We're not, trying to influence all of the youths of America in this 30 minutes.
But I will say, since people are watching 12 noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Sunday, I'm doing a Q&A at the Wait Instagram account. There you go.
I look forward to hearing Allison Janney.
She's the best. And I'll just pitch it. Her movie, Bad Education, is really great. It's on HBO, and Hugh Jackman is very, very good in it.
Oh, great. Yes. I look forward to it. Before you go, I want to plug your book. You wrote a book.
Yes.
The Incomplete Book of Running.
Yes.
You love to run. You're a marathon runner.
I have been, yes.
Which is, in my opinion, just ridiculous. I hate running, and you wrote this book for people like me.
Exactly, I did.
Hate running. So tell me more about it.
Well, what I did was I decided to write a book about for people who run or who would like to run or maybe don't think they should run, and maybe try to get them inspired to try it. And nobody was interested, so I introduced a virus from China that forced everyone to stay home, and the only exercise available to anyone is going to run. So basically, I did it. I'm sorry. Very briefly, I am a very unlikely athlete. I was very brainy and nerdy, and was told, as if I needed to be told, that I wasn't any good at sports. So I never thought of myself as athletic. And I had a kind of midlife crisis running boom, as many people do. I ended up running to date 16 marathons, and this became a central part of my life. And I've become kind of an evangelist for it, in that I think that, I'll make it very brief because we've been ongoing for a while. I think we have a lot of problems in today's world, some of which we've discussed. But one of the basic ones is we spend way too much time inside our heads and not enough time moving, and not enough time moving outside. And running is the simplest and most direct way to reconnect to what we were, if it excuse the expression, born to do, which is to be outside and moving. It's a wonderful activity because anybody can do it. You don't need lessons. You don't need special equipment. It's possible to set your own measures of success. You don't have to win a marathon or complete one to be a good runner. You can be a good runner by running 2 miles every other day. But it's something that I think almost everyone, anybody who can physically do it, if they're not, with any kind of disability or illness, will benefit from. So if you want to know more, people, I guess, can buy or borrow my book. And if anybody needs advice, I'm at Twitter at Peter Sagal. I love to gas on about it.
I love it. So this is really silly, but before we go, I wrote a limerick for you.
Oh my gosh.
And I should have asked you to write one for me. I wrote it in about 30 seconds, just before we started. And it's terrible, but are you ready?
I am ready. I'm ready for anything.
Daily news. In isolation, I dream of the beach, but paradise is far out of reach. I'll dream of the sand with a drink in my hand, but my glass will not have any
bleach. Very good.
Ding, ding, ding.
That was excellent. That was almost worthy of Philip Goedicke, our professional limericist, the country's only professional limericist, as far as we know. He writes the limericks for every episode of Wait, Wait. He is an accredited, he has a master's in limericks, which he got from the National Institute of Limericology, which is, of course, on Nantucket.
Of course it is. I love that. Well, I'm sure someone on the internet is going to tell me I broke limerick rules. And I read it to Peter really quickly, and he was like, are there enough syllables? Like, I don't care. I have to go last.
Let me tell you this. You can tell a Harvard graduate something, but you can't tell them much.
Honestly.
I ruined that. Yes, I screwed it up. I know. The worst people.
Don't tell him.
I shan't. No. I will not mention that at the next alumni gathering.
Please tell Mara I say hello. Thank you for spreading joy.
My pleasure.
And I appreciate you taking the time to chat.
And you. And Mara says hello to you, and of course your dogs.
I will tell them.
All right.
I'm bummed that Buddy left.
Oh well. All right. I'll tell my dogs that your dogs say hello.
Thank you. Be well, Peter. Good to chat.
Thank you, Chasten. Give my best to your husband. I hope I see you both soon. Bye-bye.
See ya. Oops. All right. Thank you so much to Peter Sagal for taking the time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's been great spending this time with you, just coming together, sharing some laughs. And I look forward to a very special chat tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific. I will have the future First Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden, here up in the attic, chatting with all of us. So very excited to see you all tomorrow. Please take care of yourself. Please call your mom. Take care of the people around you. We'll see you tomorrow.